Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and or girls. I'm your host, Greg Romero Wilson. With me right now is my co-host, Scott Berman, and this
Heyo.
is Fantasy Football Harsh Reality. Okay, well, now we're recording on Friday, so we didn't have a chance to get in before the Thursday game, but I will start the show by commending you. You called it. You said Bills. You bet on them. They were slight underdogs. I think it was 2.5 points, two and a half. And
Something like that. Yeah.
I thought they were jinxed. Personally, I thought they were jinxed because they kept saying it on all the sports shows. Josh Allen never loses on Thursday night, 6-0. And when you hear that stuff, normally that is a straight up jinx. And another one where they kept saying, oh, it's going to be a points bonanza. It's going to be a high scoring game. So, of course, I, being an idiot, bet the first half under of 24 points, which they beat by like 14 points. It was, in fact, I think almost all the scoring was in the first half, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Anyway, I commend you on that. What did you think? And then, of course, the game. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think maybe Tua is going to step away from football. I think I might if I were him.
I would too.
He can't, his hand did that thing again.
Totally. When I saw that, I was like, dude, that's it. No more. No more. You got to. And luckily, he got that guaranteed contract. I mean, I think they still have to give him like $130 million. So, or $70 million.
No, maybe. I think it's like 30 or 40 or whatever it is. Like that's the guaranteed if he gets injured and he has to leave. Okay. He can't play out his, but still 30-40 million bucks.
It's fine to walk away from the game. To walk away from the game, take the money and run at this point. I don't think there is any single person with any interest on any level that would hold it against him if he made that choice at this point after what you saw last night. You're like, yeah, this can't happen again. No. Next time you're in a wheelchair for life, and then the money doesn't matter.
It's not like it's not like the Andrew Luck situation where we all were like, what? I mean, I know that he always had something with his neck or this or that. He was always dealing with something, but he never looked like he got like seriously injured to the point where he had to walk away.
There was no visible, there was no incident that you were like, oh, that's it. Oh, I can see why he retired. You're like, wait a minute, what? I'm still holding on to him in my dynasty league.
You got to, because he'll probably stay because he's young, and he's a competitor. This guy cares. I mean, he wants to play. I hope his family get involved. I hope.
Yeah, I think the family is gonna have to step in and just tell me, hey, man, listen, no, you have a wife, you have children that are very young. You're too young. You get the guarantee. And I think ownership would be like, I can't ask you to stay. I can't tell you to risk your mind that way. And they say that about concussions, and this happens with fighters all the time. Once you get knocked out once, it apparently is a lot easier for you to get knocked out. And I think we saw that in this game where it didn't look like a materially rough tackle. And he's the dummy that went and put his head down forward instead of sliding.
Well, that's not fair. That's not fair. He was going for a first down and they were down by a lot. And if he had slid, everybody would have been like, oh, why you didn't care about, you should have just went for it.
No, number one, he knows he has to slide. He can't risk getting head injuries. That's number one. And he has to know that every time he runs the ball, he's got to slide safely. He should know that. That's number one. And then number two, the game was well out of hand. He did not need to be risking his life for a first down for a team that in a game they were not coming back in.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, look, they had just come back from 14 points down the week before. They were at they were in the red zone. They were on the doorstep of scoring another touchdown. I mean, it could have changed everything had they scored there. It's hard to say.
I just think he has to know, avoid getting hit, slide, no matter what. No matter what.
So
the
now,
first down ain't worth it.
So now I guess, I'm just curious, fantasy wise. Like I know reality sucks. I think that sucks.
Yes. And now let's talk about fantasy.
But I want to talk about the fantasy impact of Tua.
Yes.
So Tyreek Hill, I think, will still be okay because they'll probably do jet sweeps with him and stuff. But he's going to be catching a lot of screen passes and trying to make people miss. And Jalen Waddle's probably screwed. Achane is now a hero.
I think Tyreek Hill's stock goes way down. I think Jalen Hill's
Waddle.
Waddle's value goes up because he was working out of the slot so much. And I think if he continues to do that, I think that'll be right where that's what Skylar Thompson's going to be able to get the ball to. You know,
forget about Skylar Thompson. He can't run this off. So they have to go get somebody. Now the question is, do they go get Joe Flacco? Do they go
Tannehill?
get Tannehill? Do they try to get Jameis Winston from the Browns? I mean, because if they keep with Skylar, that he's not capable.
But there are a couple of guys floating around out there. Yeah, we saw this last year with the Jets, with them trying to just roll with Zach Wilson, and that was a disaster. I think you're right. I mean, a guy like Skylar Thompson's a spare tire. It's just supposed to get you to where you can get the main tire fixed. It's not supposed to be on. You're not supposed to ride on it the rest of the season.
Exactly.
Because it's going to roll. It's going to fly. So, and the whole car is going to crash. So you're right. I do think you're right that they have to go get somebody else. And a lot of it will have to do with that. Doesn't affect, I mean, when this type of thing happens, they're always like, they're going to have to lean on the run game. But game script decides whether or not you can lean on the run game. Sure, you can lean on the run game for the first quarter, but if they get up on you by 14 points, you have to start throwing the ball.
But don't you think that was what was crazy about this game is that it felt like Miami was looking at a different game script. Like they were the ones that kept running, even though they were down instantly. I mean, right away, they were in trouble. And they just kept running and running. And he was throwing to people that he doesn't normally throw to. I mean, I forgot about Robbie Chosen. Robbie Chosen is now over there. But how long has he been there for, to have a cup of coffee? I don't know how much, they've got, how much chemistry they've got. Why wasn't he throwing? He barely was throwing anything to Waddle or Tyreek. It was such a strange game. It just, I don't know. They just give what's his name, the coach McDaniel, a bunch of money and another 4 years.
I think so.
Maybe they're all just too comfortable and rich and fat and happy, and they just believe that they're just going to be what they always have been, which is amazing at the beginning of the season, and then just boom.
That cliff came a lot sooner because it's week 2. And Tua, I agree with what you're saying. And in terms of play calling, I mean, I'm going to talk about what's going on the Bills side of the ball, because you look at those numbers, you look at the final score, and you think Josh Allen must have had himself a day, and instead it's the James Cook show.
James Cook.
And we saw this at the end of last season. I thought it would definitely be the case at the beginning of the season because of his lack of rapport with all these new receivers. But I think this just may be who the Bills are now because it's wildly successful.
Yep.
It's working like a charm. And when if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think this may, and so for Josh Allen managers, I think now you're going to be doing a little hand wringing. Because you're thinking, well, if this is how it's going to be, am I looking at because it was 30 points week 1, 12 points week 2.
Oh, I wish Tua got 12 points.
Yeah, but
2.5.
Which of the two is the truth? I mean, we did the whole week 1 is a mirage. So is Josh Allen getting 30 points?
I think it's not 30, but it's also not 12. I think it's probably going to be in the 20s, which is great, which is fine. I mean, it's not what you drafted him. It's not what you drafted him for, because his legs will continue to get you points, especially in leagues where the scoring is rushing, more points than passing, which is almost all of them. So I think that he'll still be okay. He just won't be like, you picked him in the 3rd round or something when, you were thinking you were going to be getting that week 1 Josh Allen every week. And I don't know. I think their defense is better than I gave them credit for. I thought, they lost so many defensive pieces. I just thought, well, and they've got Von Miller, old man Miller out there, trying at 35 to still move around and stuff.
Yeah.
I just didn't think that their defense was going to be that good. But it turns out their defense is still pretty solid. Ed Oliver.
Pretty solid. And obviously very well coached, because their game plan to shut down those receivers, to shut down that passing game worked. And they were forced to feed the ball to HN, which I still don't understand why. Of course, what? 3 plays and he's injured already, boy. And
Jeff Wilson's injured.
Jeff Wilson, he didn't even carry the ball once. I think he caught 2 passes, and that was it. He's already.
How did he get injured? What did he do? How did he running to the sideline? Did he pull a hamstring?
Like what?
What happened?
So, I tell you what, if you're a Jalen Wright owner, hold on to him because everyone else is injured, and they're going to have to go to him eventually. Eventually, they're going to have to
Why
go.
was if it's, that's another question I have about the so there was two like there was a lot of issues with Miami yesterday. I just terrible game management and script man like I know that you weren't expecting to immediately, turn the ball over and be down 7 but you came back and scored 7. Why did you go for it on 4th down in your
Oh, that was unbelievable. And it was like in the first quarter, like was that the
so
first drive,
early?
second drive? Like it was so early. I'm like, what are you doing?
I don't
It
understand.
wasn't even close. Wasn't it like 4th and 6 or something? Like it
I
wasn't
think it was
even
4th and
close.
3, but still 3 is a long way in the NFL. Like,
Yeah.
it's not easy. It's not a gimme. Fourth and 3 is hard.
Especially on your own like 30-yard line, like
Yeah,
that early in the game, it made
it was
zero
so
sense.
desperate
That was
and
a
weird.
dumb play. I remember that one too.
Yeah, so I don't understand that. And then I don't understand if HN, had an ankle. He touched, how many times he touched the ball? Like how many touches he had?
Like 30, right?
29.
29.
29 touches. He had
Yeah.
a hurt ankle. What was he doing at the end of that game, still in the game?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. Why not let your rookie, go out there, take some snaps, get more comfortable? He started to get a little bit comfortable. He had a great run that was called back on a holding call. It was like a 12-yard run where he went, up the middle, and he looked pretty good. But the kid, this kid's going to need some experience because he's going to be thrust into action. I mean, next week, he's going to be playing, and there's no one else. There's no one else there besides H-Hand.
No, absolutely. It's going to be Jalen Wright's season pretty soon. And maybe not. And again, they always rely on, the backup quarterback, rely on the run. But I just don't think you can lean on the run game. Once you go down 14 points, you got to start slinging it. And we'll get to, which I think brings me to Josh Jacobs. Okay. And because to me, we'll get to this, but just to touch on it really quickly, with Malik Willison, obviously they're going to try and shut down the run game and force him to throw because the guy loves to throw interceptions. I mean, the real play is obviously the Indianapolis defense, but we'll get into that a little bit more later.
Yep.
Let's talk your bounce back candidates for the week. Would you like to lead off?
Sure. I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to bounce back.
He's on my list too.
I think he's going to bounce back. They're not going to keep him down. They're not going to keep him down. They realize that they were really close to beating the Bills. And if the Bills are really as good as we just saw, they know that they've got to utilize this weapon. They probably looked back at the tape and was like, you know what, we could have drawn up some plays to get him involved a little bit earlier. I have a feeling they're gonna go out of their way to draw some up early.
To get him involved early. Yeah. And I think you're right. And I think I think the Bills game plan specifically to shut him down in a way they didn't expect. It's a fucking going out there. And I don't think, that's something you do for a veteran that is going to gash you. This is a rook, and yet they seem to have game planned specifically to shut him down in advance. And so I think you're 1,000% right. I think they're definitely going to go out of their way to get him involved early, to get him going. And I think the same thing is going to be true for my number one bounce back candidate this week, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's no way. I think first pass, Amon-Ra. Maybe first
second pass, Laporta. Second pass, Laporta.
Exactly. Laporta's all, yes, he's another bounce back. In fact, I have just tight ends in general on my list.
That's so funny. That's my number 3, all tight ends. I have that as my number 3.
And also passers in general, I think will get a big rebound this week. Although that isn't indicative from Thursday night. Thursday night, it was not a passers rebound, so maybe that's how.
Look, I've got a crazy kind of notion. I don't know. I'm not going to call it a full-on upset. I'm not going to predict a full upset, but you want to hear about a bounce back. I think Cincy is going to bounce back in a big way.
Absolutely.
And they just might beat Kansas City. I don't know. They're certainly going to cover whatever the spread is. I don't know what the spread is, but they're going to cover. They're going to cover.
Now, I do have Burrow down here as well as Rodgers specifically as guys that are going to bounce back this week and come back. I mean, they came out, they saw that. They had to get the feel of the game again. kind of a thing. Zero preseason. They just have to get the feel for it. But these are guys we know they can sling it. We know they're winners. They know they can do things. So I think both Burrow and Rodgers, big time bounce back games in very good matchups. So
Yes.
I think the Burrow Chiefs thing is exactly what he needs because he's gonna have to throw the ball. They're
Yes.
not going to be able to just run it to keep up with his team. He's going to have to sling it. So regardless, I think he's numerically win or lose, he's going to have a good fantasy day. And I just think for Rodgers after last week, I think the Jets in general, and the Jets defense as well on the bounce back.
Yeah, they did not look good. I mean, maybe it's just the 49ers are really just that great.
Well, and that's the thing. I think the 49ers are really that great. I think absolutely.
I hate that. I hate that, by the way. Just personally hate that they're great.
But this week, they've got the Titans, a marginally easier team to dominate than the Niners. So I think they're going to go out there, and I think they're going to feel real good about themselves. I think Breece Hall, but he's not a bounce back because he still did pretty good. But I think just the team in general is going to have a wonderful bounce back. Rodgers, especially Garrett Wilson. You'll probably see some Conklin points.
That's what I was going to say. Conklin, I was surprised we didn't see any Conklin. But what we did see was that Allen Lazard, and we saw him, say, "Hey, this is my guy. I'm comfortable with him," and he does what he does. Anytime they throw a flag, he just says, "All right, I'm taking my shot. I know I've got a free play." He's the best in the NFL, I think, ever to recognize it
and take advantage of that moment. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the refs let him do it more. I think too. Like they don't call the plays dead on him as much as they do on other quarterbacks, which I don't understand why that is.
Well, Brady used to get a lot of those too. Remember, they would, the flag would go out. They knew Brady was going to sail it all the way down the field. It's like free play.
Yeah. Why wouldn't everybody do that? I don't understand. Right. Because you might wind up even getting pass interference down there.
Well, if you remember, Brady used to throw a fit when they would stop the play. He would visibly fucking dress them down. So they learned not to do that shit with Brady. And Rodgers is still from that, and I think he's still getting that credit too.
Yeah.
But I think he's gonna have to sling it. I think he's just gonna enjoy the game more. Because again, it's the Titans, and the Titans look like hot garbage right now. So I mean, it could be great for him.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
I think Mark Andrews have a bounce back? I think he does. Again, I think everyone invested so heavily in Likely, but I think we may see, they were both out there. I think we may see Mark. Let's see, but I think he's in line for a bounce back.
I've got him on my breakout list.
Yeah. Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yep.
You know who else is, I think, in line for a big bounce back? Ayuk. I mean, he can't be happy with getting
Ayuk's going to do great. Ayuk's going to do great.
Especially because this is the big breakout and bounce back game for him.
I don't think Christian McCaffrey is going to be back because they don't need to rush him back. They're like, oh, well, we've got this guy. I don't know how they do it over there. And is it just their line is so good that you could just shove anybody in there and they're all going to look like Christian McCaffrey? I mean, Jordan Mason, 146 yards and 2 touchdowns or something, and is like, I don't understand how they always. Eli Mitchell looked like he was going to beat the world whenever McCaffrey was out. Is it everybody they put in there seems to succeed?
Well, I think it's the scheme. I mean, they just know how to distract them and make them go where they want to go and open up the run game. I mean, they just know the game planning is fantastic. It's just great scheme.
It's loaded.
Great scheme.
They're loaded.
So another guy I think is going to have a bounce back is McLaurin. I think this is his bounce back game because it's against the Giants. It's going to be, if the Giants ever do anything, it's going to be this week against Washington. And if Washington ever were to have a great game, if McLaurin was going to have a great game, it's going to be this one against the Giants because they suck in general.
Yeah, we should just take the over on this one because there's no defense playing.
Yeah.
In this game, neither side has any defense.
So you're right. So it should be, McLaurin should have a real nice bounce back game, I think.
And so should Danny Dimes. I think he'll come out. And you know who else that means? That means that Malik Neighbors. Now I know he's questionable right now, but
let's and that brings us to potential breakouts.
Yeah,
so we've got some great matchups for that. We have Adonai Mitchell with the Colts and Malik Neighbors with the Giants, who are up against Washington, who's terrible. The Colts are up against the Packers, who are good, but again, without Jordan Love, who somehow now is just questionable for the game. This is, I think you let him rest at least one game, but they keep teasing it like he's going to play. So if He doesn't play. I love the cold. I think the Adonai Mitchell would have a much better chance because I think that defense will be out there on the field a lot, and I think they'll get tired. But so potential breakout. Who do you think? Adonai Mitchell, Malik Neighbors,
Yep.
Harrison Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
Brian Thompson Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
Brian Thomas Jr., and McConkey, which I know McConkey scored last week, but he didn't have it was like he caught 2 passes, and one of them was for that.
I feel like I am this guy's agent because the way I keep talking about him every time we get on these things. Boy, I tell you what, go at some point I'm going to be right. All right, and then I'm going to take the clip. I'm going to boost it or whatever because I think Bucky Irving is going to have a breakout this game, this week.
Really?
This is the week. Yes.
This week.
Yep. I think Bucky Irving is going to show you that he is the man, and Rachaad White is going to be the 1B or just 2. I think Bucky is going to
Against
take
the
over.
Lions.
Yeah, I know. He's going to do it. He's going to do it.
Okay. All right.
That's my breakout.
That is wow. That is. I mean, my guys of all these. The thing of all these guys, you like Harrison Jr. Obviously, I like Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors, I think, is in line to really have a great game against Washington, and I think Brian Thomas Jr. Jacksonville. I think I think this might be the one where we see a lot more of him. He's up against the Browns.
if you want to try to trade for Malik Neighbors, if you don't do it before this game, you're not going to get an opportunity to do it, after this, or you're going to have to pay way higher, if you want to.
Honestly, McConkey should have a great game because they're up against Carolina, and everybody that plays Carolina has a great game.
Jeez.
So
I feel so bad for that whole team.
But I feel like all of these rookie wide receivers have an opportunity to really break out this weekend.
Except for the one that I played yesterday.
Right.
That guy had one target. Keon Coleman had one target and didn't catch it. And I was like,
we have our first Blutarski of the season. So for those of you who don't know what that is the character John Belushi played Bluto Blutarski in Animal House. And he goes into the dean's office and he's telling them they're all expelled and he's reading their grade point average. He goes,
Mr. Blutarski, 0.0.
So we have our first Blutarski of the season, Keon Coleman. I saw that and I'm like,
yeah, terrible, dude. I was so mad. But I thought for sure he'd get something, for God's sake.
I was going to say so, but it looks like they just didn't pass the ball much.
Didn't need to. I think it was 19 total passes.
Shakir still managed to turn up. I think it was like 8.5 points, 9 points. So yeah, I think Khalil Shakir is going to continue to grow and be a real dependable piece of this offense. I don't know if he'll ever be wide receiver 1, but I think he may work his way into definitely consistent flex consideration, 100%. Depending on matchup. If not, maybe by the end of the season, wide receiver 2 range.
Sure. I can see that absolutely within the realm of possibility because, it's not going to be Curtis Samuel for those people who thought perhaps it might be him. And you see, Kincaid did get some at the beginning, some, and he's a big guy. I mean, I don't know why they aren't using him more. I guess they didn't need to this particular game, but you see, like when he gets tackled, he falls forward for like 3 yards and through people. Like he's just that big, huge guy that just falls forward. So he'll be good, but you see the comfort that Allen has with Shakir.
Totally.
And everybody who said, I don't know why people aren't taking him because he's the only one who ever caught a pass from the guy that's still on the offense. So why aren't you doing, besides from Kincaid, why aren't people talking about him? I guess it's just because his name isn't as sexy or whatever. He didn't seem, he's always been just like a jag, just a guy.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. People will know his name. He will be relevant. He certainly is going to be in a lot of my DFS lineups moving forward, when you need it, because he's still cheap right now.
He's cheap, exactly. He's cheap, and he's going to get you some points. And
so you were right about
if you want to spend a bunch on some of those top-end players, you need a guy like Shakir at the bottom that's going to at least contribute and not cost you much. So you're right. For daily fantasy right now, he's going to be a value throughout the first half of the season, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Do you have any other breakouts?
I do. I do have another one, and this one isn't. I guess it's another one of these. I love these backup running back. Tank Bigsby. Okay.
Oh,
I
okay.
know. Look, I think
Boy,
I know.
you are
I
really
know. I'm taking
some
shots.
moon shots here.
I'm
Bucky,
taking shots.
and
Look,
I'm
man.
like
What do you want me to say? Xavier Worthy? You want me to say? What do you? I mean, who am I supposed? I'm trying to find people who are going to break out. People that you want to take that shot on now. While get them while you can, kind of guys like Adonai Mitchell for you. That's a guy you can go get right now. Go get him.
It's true.
Go get him. I think Tank Bigsby. He showed a pretty good. He had a pretty good showing. I think he had
a good
12
share.
touches.
He had a good share. He had a good showing. Yep.
And we saw ETN fumble right through the end zone. Doug doesn't.
Okay, wait. You keep saying he fumbled right through the end zone. He had the ball punched out of his hands, Peanut Tillman style.
He did
at the end zone. Okay,
he did.
That could have anybody would have dropped. It was a perfect putt. Couldn't have been more on target. It's not like you make it sound like
hold that ball tighter, bro. Hold it tighter,
and he will.
If they let him. Who didn't get the ball?
But I think Bigsby is going to have a bigger share than we expected him to have. But I don't think it's startable. But
maybe not. I mean, we'll see. This might be a break.
I don't see it. I don't think he breaks out.
He might. This is why I put him down. He continues
to play the exact role he's playing now, which is he spells Etienne and he does a real nice job of it. But I think that's it.
We shall see.
We shall see. It'll be interesting to review that. Let's go on to must start, must sit. I have a lot more must starts than sits, but I got a lot of them all the same.
Okay.
And for me, number one with a bullet is the Chargers defense versus Carolina. I mean, the Chargers defense, first of all, looked fantastic against the Raiders. Made the Raiders look fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And then, and of course, along with that, Dobbins. I think JK should ball out against Carolina. I think it's a wonderful situation for him. That's my first must start. What do you got?
Well, my first one with a bullet is Jaden Daniels.
Okay, yep.
I mean, you got to start him. You got to. I've got my must starts. I put him in like quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and tight end. So at the quarterback must starts, I've got Matt Stafford as well. I got Matt Stafford versus Arizona.
Right.
Because Arizona's got a bad defense.
Totally. They didn't give it up. Oh,
right?
1,000%. Yep.
So I think he's a must start because also, Kyron Williams has shown that he's injury prone. And I think that they want to be able to have him later. I don't think that they're going to do what they did to Todd Gurley, where they're just like, we're going to use you until you're used up. And you're, and just run you into the ground. I think they want to do some. I'm not saying they don't want to run,
right?
But you see, and when they see, oh, great, Cooper Kupp is back, so we're going to be great, with him. And I think, what I forgot to mention another possible breakout. This is another moonshot. Is Colby Parkinson, the tight end over there. Higbee's out.
Honestly, I think Parkinson's got a much better shot at being a breakout than Tank Bigsby, and certainly more than Bucky Irving.
Bucky's going to break out. Bucky's breaking out this week.
Okay,
listen, you mark my word.
I like bold predictions, and that's what that segment's for. I like it.
He's doing it.
I think you're dead wrong, but I like it.
We'll see.
We will see. Now,
so those are my quarterbacks.
The dilemma, and this is really a tough call for me, but just really, since we're kind of here right now, I have Dak Prescott and I have Matthew Stafford. And Dak's up against New Orleans, a much better defense.
Yeah. I would start Stafford.
And that's what I have in there. Well, no, I don't. I had him in there. Then I was like, no, stick to the plan. And I was like, no, Dak. But then I'm like,
Isn't your plan to win?
Yes.
You should start Matt Stafford.
Okay, but see, again, thinking about the way things have been, looking at the way things have been shifting in opposites so far versus week one, then Dak would be the one that would show up, and Stafford. But I don't think Stafford's going to struggle. I think it's a safer bet, maybe. I don't know. I just think that they've got a much easier.
Oh,
it's such an easy matchup. But at the same time, well, I mean, Arizona should put up
And I don't
points
know. You know
too.
what? Who has the higher over under? Who's going to have more scoring? Which game is supposed to have more scoring? I think I would start whoever with the quarterback who I have on whichever game has the higher over under. I'd probably go that way. And it's probably Arizona.
It's probably,
Rams.
yeah, it probably is for that. Yeah, I'll look at that, but you're probably right. Although they may not be that far apart. We'll have to look at that towards the end. Another must start. Again, this is if Malik Willis plays, you have to play the Indianapolis defense. I've already got them locked and loaded in one because I thought for sure it was going to be Willis. So I mean, I thought they were saying 4 to 6 weeks, and all of a sudden now he might. I don't know.
Dude, that's coach speak. That's jive, man. It's not. He ain't starting.
Daniel LaRusso's gonna fight.
Yeah, right. That's not gonna happen. It's jive.
I know, week 2, you're not gonna put him out there and risk losing him for the season. I think it's gamesmanship too. But for us, it'd be better if you just declared him out so I could put him on injury reserve and pick up another fucking player.
Yeah, well, they don't care about us.
They really don't. They don't even care.
They
and
don't.
Also sticking with defenses, the Houston defense versus the Bears, because the Bears still clearly haven't gotten it together. So
93 yards.
I think Houston D is going to have a real good day against.
And not to mention the Houston defense has vastly improved. They improved it over the summer. I mean, it's pretty good. Yeah. It's good. Yeah. Like that might be a season-long defense that you would want to keep.
I'm trying to think of who that big acquisition they had was. They had somebody. They brought in somebody.
There was two of them.
So they added Daniil Hunter and Danico Autry, which are just major upgrades, especially Daniil Hunter. Gosh, what a beast. Which, by the way, isn't it funny the way, like, if you were just looking at it on paper, it's clearly Danielle. Like, come on, guys. That's clear. Right? If you just look at it on paper, you'd be like Danielle. And think about how many times that must have happened in school. Right? Every first day.
Why do you think he's a big, strong football player?
It's like it's Daniil. They're like, it sure is, buddy.
Yep.
You're
yes,
right.
Sir.
Yes, you giant monster. It is Daniil.
Yeah. He's a boy named Sue.
Yeah.
You know, you made him strong.
But I love that. I love that defense versus Chicago this week.
Well, I'll tell you let me give you my must-start running backs. I got 2. These are names that I think they're not sexy, okay, but I think that they are must-starts, and it's because of their matchups, and it's because of what I did see in week 1.
Let's see if they're the same ones that I have.
First one's James Conner. James Conner's a must-start. Start. He is getting I thought maybe Trent Edwards was going to take it, cut in to his stuff a little bit more. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen quite yet. They're going to use Conner up front in the beginning of the season. They're going to front load with him, and he looked great in that first game. Let's just face it. The guy is still doing it, and he looks good. And the second one, Ramondre Stevenson. He might be the only guy on the Patriots that you can play, I think, like for fantasy. Like I mean, I don't know how this Polk kid's going to turn out, but I don't think you can start Brissett. I don't think you can. So maybe their defense, but as far as an offensive player, I think Ramondre is another one that's going to have a very good game. They're playing I've got it written here, the Seahawks. So and even though the Seahawks defense is okay, it's gotten, they're not quite the Legion of Boom anymore. But Ramondre looked really solid in that first week, and I think people are just sort of overlooking these 2 guys because they're kind of boring. But I think that they're must starts this week.
One of the guys that a running back I have as a must start is Brian Robinson Jr. Because of the matchup against the Giants. I think it's a great matchup for him. I just think he's going to be able to find space and barrel through dudes and have a good game. I like Brian Robinson Jr. a lot. If if he's your RB2, fire him up. If he's your RB1, you have problems. But if he's your flex or RB2, I think you'd absolutely put him in. And shockingly, also Jerome Ford. I like Jerome Ford versus Jacksonville, who I know they were tough against the run last week, but he's been getting all those check down passes. And I just think that he's going to be really productive. Again, not saying RB1, but in your flex, I think Jerome Ford is a great
but a must start, really? Jerome Ford. I mean,
I'm not really Jerome Ford, probably not must. Yeah. I think Brian Robinson Jr. is, but maybe not a must start, but I really like this opportunity this week.
Yeah, he's a sneaky start. I don't know.
I think a must start is Devonta Smith.
Oh yeah, he looked really good. Both of them. Both of them.
Right. I mean, obviously, A.J. Brown. But
Yes.
Devonta Smith versus Atlanta, I think this is a must-start situation. I really like it. And Zay Flowers as well. Zay Flowers, I think is a must-start.
That's funny. Zay Flowers is your Bucky Irving. Like I mean,
no.
You
Zay
love
Flowers
him.
is first of all, he's a wide receiver, one on the team, and he's a starter. And I know he was quiet last week, and that he's a bounce back candidate as well. But I think he's a must start because they're in this plus matchup with
Raiders and Ravens. Yeah, you're right.
So, and are they at home? I think they're at home.
You know what's crazy though, and I know this is not really.
Yes, they're at home versus the Raiders. I love
the
this.
Raiders play them tough. The Raiders play them tough, and the Raiders play Kansas City tough all the time. I don't know why. I don't understand. It's like Miami used to always play New England tough when they had Tom Brady. It was a weird thing, even when Miami was bad. You know, I just think
the run game is going to find space. That's going to suck up the defense into it, and then they're going to be able to pass. This is the week. Possibly, you want to call it a breakout, you want to call it a bounce back, you want to call it a must start. I love Zay Flowers this week. I really do. And you're right. So I don't know why. Some guys I do have a feeling that maybe that is my Bucky Irving, but he's on the field.
He is. That's true. He is. He's a starter. At least
you're right about must start. Who are your must start?
You know what? I've got this one. I'm going to say it, and as I say it, I feel bad about saying it because I just want you to have confidence. If you're out there and you went crazy, you went high testosterone, and you took all the running backs, and you didn't get very many wide receivers, and you wound up with a bunch of rookies. I got one that's gonna. Don't be that afraid. Give Xavier Legette a start. And I know he plays for the Carolina Panthers. And I know that it's weird, but I think if you've got him,
must start. Wait, you questioned Jerome Ford?
I know.
And you saying Xavier Legette is a must?
I know. Maybe I should have him in breakout. He should have been.
You might want to put him over in breakout. I don't think he's a must start.
That's him out and put him in breakout.
That's a roll the dice. You want to roll the dice? Yeah, roll the dice on him. Oh, you know why I had Jerome Ford on the must start list? Because there's clearly a problem with the chemistry with Amari Cooper. And so long as there's a problem, and this dates back to last season, this is not a new occurrence. And I think so long as that exists, that opens the door for dump off passes to Jerome Ford.
Yeah, you're not that wrong also, because I think that isn't Njoku injured right now too?
And Njoku is injured.
So that does help tremendously for Jerome.
Exactly. I think it just gives him just tons of opportunity. I think he is. I mean, for a flex play, I think he's an excellent must-start flex play.
Well, I love all the Xaviers. So start Xavier Worthy as well. Start Xavier Worthy. Not that you wouldn't, but
exactly. You don't need to tell anybody that he is, because he's the new Tyreek. I mean, he could be, at any moment could be an 80-yard touchdown. And they're looking for him. And it's Mahomes throwing him the ball. I mean, come on. Now, what about quarterback?
For quarterback, I already said I've got Jaden Daniels and Matt Stafford were my quarterback.
Right. Okay. Right. Mine are Baker Mayfield, because against Detroit, I think it's going to turn into a track meet real fucking fast. So I love Baker having to throw that ball to two great wide receivers. I think he's a must start. And as I mentioned earlier, Joe Burrow, because again, same reason, going to have to throw the ball down the stretch. Great receivers. I think he's going to do great. Now, who are your must-sits?
Well, no, we haven't done tight ends.
Oh.
I've got two must-start tight ends here. One of them is Colby Parkinson, who I mentioned earlier, for the Rams, just because, again, I just think this game is going to have I think it's going to be a point festival. I see this being a high-flying shootout. I just think it's going to be one of those games. And then Mark Andrews is a must-start. This guy, this Likely thing, I like Likely a lot. I think he's great, and I believe that he is the future. I don't think he's the present. That was a mirage.
Okay, maybe I believe that might be true.
He'll be involved, but it's going to go. Of all those people who spent all their fab on Likely are going to be sad. And I would say also right now, if you need a tight end, go try to trade for Mark Andrews. Those people are panicking badly.
That's true. That is a great point. That is
Yeah.
a great point.
Mhm.
I, for one, I think almost all the tight ends are must starts because it's such a thin position. And if you have one of the names, you got to play the name. That's
Yeah,
it.
you don't have much of a choice. I mean,
That's what
Colby
I'm saying.
Parkinson
Like
is a name that
Cody
is that
Parkinson is a sneaky pick and
right.
I like, and I agree with it. I think
Yeah.
he might be. I agree with that in that game versus Arizona. It's a good game.
And he's a
Great
guy that might
matchup.
be available. Like if you need somebody, like he
Yeah.
might be a guy you can go get right now. Like I tried to get him in our league, and he's already gone. Our league is really smart, so it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to get anything by anybody in our league. But most other leagues, not that you're all stupid, but that he's probably out there in the majority. I
If
bet
you're
you if I
watching
look,
this show, you can't be that smart.
well,
So
I guess if you're looking at us for advice, yeah, then Colby Parkinson's on your way. Go get him.
although you know what, we're both pretty damn good at this. So I've won a lot of titles. I
Yeah,
won
I've
4
been there a
last
lot.
season.
I've been there a lot.
Okay, now let's get to the sits because for me, let's start at the top. For me, it's 3 wide receivers and 1 running back. So for me, right at the top, Calvin Ridley. Going up
Oh,
against that Jets defense.
wow.
First of all, the chemistry is not there yet. I think we see that. And they're going up against the Jets defense. Sauce Gardner is going to be on him because he's the #1 receiver. So to me, don't touch it. Don't touch it. It's kryptonite.
Huh. So I'm looking here and I'm thinking, I don't have a ton of sits. I've just got tough calls on
Okay, well
my.
then I'll finish my
So what
sits
else
really
you got
quickly.
for your sits? Yeah.
Yeah, really quickly, I've got Amari Cooper, obviously for the reasons I just expounded on.
Excellent.
Drake London, for very obvious reasons,
Mm-hmm.
and Josh Jacobs, which people are saying the floor for him goes up, but I think it goes down. If he doesn't play, I think everybody goes down. I think they will focus on stopping the run just to make Malik Willis throw the ball, and because he's known for throwing interceptions.
Yeah.
So just I would sit Josh Jacobs, and in fact I'm
But if he's
playing
known for
Jerome.
throwing
I'm
interceptions,
playing Jerome.
why wouldn't you then double down on Jacobs? Like if they're gonna lean on him a lot more heavily, they'll let him
Yes,
throw,
but
but
they're going
like
to stack the box. There's going to be nowhere for him to go.
but Jacobs is a great pass catching running back. He'll run through the air. Like it'll be those those short dink and dunk passes that he can go get. I think he'll probably be. I don't know. Do you sit? I think you definitely sit Christian Watson. You definitely
Yes.
sit
All the receivers. All the
not
receivers.
Jaden Reed. Not Jaden Reed. I think
I'd sit him too. Absolutely.
because he's another one of these guys that they're going to hand the ball to.
If it's Willis, he can't get the ball to anybody.
Right, but he can hand it to him. Jaden Reed does the jet sweeps like Xavier Worthy did. Jaden
Right.
Reed scored on one of those as well. I mean, you said it's a copycat league, He did the same thing Worthy did. He's very fast. He's dynamic.
And in all transparency, Josh Jacobs went from my must start list because of thinking it like through that way to my must sit list, thinking it through the opposite way of them just stacking the box, shutting down the run, and trying to force him to throw that ball down the field so they can intercept it. And I think that's how it's going to go. Even if he catches some dink and dunks, they're not going to be for much. They're not going to be high value. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
It was only 2 years ago. It was only 2 years ago that he was the NFL's leading running back.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not washed. He started slow last week, but he finished with it pretty good.
He looked pretty good. Second half, he looked pretty good.
So I don't know. I think I wouldn't be afraid. I wouldn't call him a must sit. I think that, you've drafted Josh Jacobs in the 3rd, 4th. I mean, it's really high in your draft. Who are you going to put in there?
Malik Willis in there. If you got somebody, I'm starting Jerome Ford over him.
Whoa! Wow.
Yep.
Well,
if Malik Willis starts, which we all know he's going to.
I agree.
Gamesmanship aside, he's obviously going to start.
Totally.
Now, tough calls. Let's go to tough calls. We already covered one of mine, Prescott versus Stafford, and you said Stafford. I was leaning Stafford, but then sort of the Josh Jacobs versus Jerome Ford thing.
Wow.
Where you're on the Josh Jacobs side, and to me the Stafford is Jerome Ford. So
I hear you.
It's a tough call.
So
now,
I've got a tough call that's personal. Right.
Okay.
It's not our league, so you can feel good about it. Because it is my actual lineup, and I'm having a tough call.
Okay.
Who would you start if you were me? And these are your only choices, all right? There's no other choice. So DeAndre Swift or Najee Harris.
Ooh. I hate to say it, I'm going Harris.
You are really?
Yeah.
Good, because that's who I have in there now. But God, it doesn't feel good. Neither one of these guys feel good.
Yeah, listen, Swift is causing a lot of consternation these days. One of mine is Swift or Madison.
I think I'd go Madison.
Right?
I think I would.
But they're up against Baltimore. Chicago is playing
Texans. Oh God, they're both
Texans.
bad.
Right, so they both have tough matchups.
Well, I think I might go. Jeez, I think I might.
I would probably go Swift just because he's got all the touches.
Yeah, and he is a very good pass catching running back. I mean, the preseason that little flip, where he ran 51 yards on that. I mean, he can take a 1 yard pass and turn it into 50 yards. And I guess you want to use him while he's still healthy because he has a tendency to get banged up too. So you might want to use him while you can. God, that really is a tough call. Wow.
And then that one may come down to the wire. I may just stick with Swift because sometimes you're just like, stick with the guy. I don't know.
Yeah, at least he's a starter for sure. I mean,
exactly, and he's dominating the touches, but I don't know how much. I don't know that whole offense now just looks so shaky. But he needed to get out there, get his feet wet. There could be a dramatic uptick this week. Now a lot of people have both Andrews and Likely, and are not planning to start them both.
Right.
So is it Andrews or is it Likely?
It's Andrews.
I agree with that. I think there'll be a market correction, as it were.
And I think that everyone's going to play Likely.
Yes, everyone. And so many people traded for him this week. I had a guy, he wanted Rashee Rice for Isaiah Likely in a dynasty league.
What?
And I know. And I'm like, I'm not giving up Rashee Rice in a dynasty league.
I tell you what, in a dynasty league, it makes more sense because Likely is the future, right?
But so is Rashee Rice.
Of course. I wouldn't do it. I'm saying it makes more sense in a dynasty league to offer that.
Right.
But that does bring me to another tough call. Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, or Brian Thomas Jr. Pick one.
Rashee Rice.
That's what I've got. I've got Brian Thomas Jr. really is tempting.
It is, and I have him in my potential breakouts.
He looks fantastic.
Yeah.
He looked so good. I thought as a rookie, you don't usually start that hot, as a rookie, and he really.
And that vaunted Browns defense didn't look so great last week, so he could be the guy that has the easier matchup and ends up with the points. You're right. I like that, but Rashee Rice is money in the bank.
Yeah, and especially now, I guess Hollywood Brown is, I think, gone for the season.
Yeah, well, he's on IR. I don't know.
Well, they said because he's got to go get surgery. He's about to go get surgery on his shoulder or something.
That guy just retired.
He can't. Yeah, he's done.
What about this? 3 guys, wide receiver 2.
Yep.
Alec Pierce, Alan Lazard, or Marvin Harrison Jr.
Got to go Marvin Harrison Jr.
You got to stick with it. Yeah.
You got to. Look, you spent that draft capital. You're sort of pot committed, and I really put him on the bounce backs because I believe that they're going to do it. They're going to.
No, and I agree. So it's got to be Harrison. Yeah. Any other tough calls? I mean, there's so many tough calls. These are just the ones I highlighted this week.
Well, I had Kincaid or Andrews, but Andrews now the answer is Andrews because we saw what Kincaid did. He was okay, but they just it was all Cook. There was no reason for anything else.
And it seems to me that's the game plan. So, and then behind him is Ray Davis, and considering how much they're running Cook, you better have Ray Davis because that guy, he's going to be up eventually.
He looked pretty good. He looked pretty solid.
He looks fantastic. He
looks strong, stocky.
And fast, very fast, very shifty. Let's move on to boom or bust. Boom or bust. For me, obviously, we've discussed it several times. Marvin Harrison Jr., number 1 with the bullet. That's the guy that's boom or bust. It's got to happen, one or the other. And I don't think it can be as bust as it was last week. And if it's anything, then it should be boom.
Yeah, I think he'll boom. I think he will boom.
My other boom or bust guys are obviously Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. I think the Nico Collins, as long as he's healthy, is the most reliable option there. That's obvious.
It's always boomer bust for Rashid Shaheed, and it's always boomer bust for Zay Flowers,
Yeah.
right? Those guys can be in that category every week. It's going to be probably, how about this one? How about Dallas Goddard?
Oof, I don't think he's boomer bust at all. I think he's just like bust or less bust.
Bust or Buster?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Busted.
What about Kyle Pitts? I've got Kyle Pitts on boomer bust.
I like that. I think it could go either way. That's a good one. I like Boom, but I'm into him this year. I think, even though I think that Kirk didn't look so good. Kirk looked bad.
Kirk looks real bad. He doesn't look like the I mean, you don't just come off of an Achilles tear and play like you never left. I mean, this is going to take time to get confidence. Remember what happened with Dak and his ankle, and he couldn't run for a whole season, even though he wasn't back. I think that's what we're looking at with Cousins. I don't think it's going to take him at least half a season to really feel comfortable again.
I think you're right, because he's not going to threaten to do any running. It's not like he was a huge mobile quarterback anyway, but he could scramble, and that would open up people downfield. I don't think he's going to have that same ability for at least another, 6-7 weeks before he can feel comfortable at least doing that. So, but I do think Kyle Pitts, watching him run routes is like, he's really good. Like, he just hasn't had an accurate quarterback, and he's had terrible coaching. So I think he'll boom.
Okay. And then the guy we've talked about a lot today, likely, you think he'll bust.
Yep.
You think last week was the boom, and I think it is a boom or bust situation. Because it's either going to be him or Andrews, because we saw when he was boomed, Andrews was a bust. So if Andrews is the boom, then likely has to be the bust, and that seems to be the way that's going to go.
Yep.
So we'll see. So now go ahead. Take it over for the game upsets. You're the best at predicting these. I love your predictions.
I've only got one.
You nailed it with the Bills. There's only one worth knowing about. What is it?
I've only got one left, and that is the Cardinals. The Cardinals are going to beat the Rams.
Wow.
Yeah, Cardinals are going to beat the Rams.
Yabba.
Yeah. They're going to beat them. And you know how? Marvin Harrison Jr., our boom guy, is going to be the reason.
The boom is coming. Here comes the boom. Ready or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What do you think as far as game upsets? I only had 2 this week.
Honestly, looking at it, I didn't see a lot. I mean, looking at the matchups.
Here are the games. Seahawks, Pats. I mean, Seahawks are probably going to win.
Yeah, I mean, but it's that's good. You're going to be closer than people expect, because that Patriots defense turns out to be really, really good. Again.
So Chargers, Panthers. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. That was obvious.
Right.
Yeah, go Chargers.
Colts, Packers with Malik. Colts, 100%.
Yeah, obviously.
Jets, Titans. I mean, look.
Should be Jets. Jets.
I don't see the Titans figuring out a way. They couldn't keep on a 17-point lead over a guy who only had 93 passing yards. They're not going to do it. They can't do it. So the Raiders and the Ravens. I mean, the Raiders are good. They can be.
They're still figuring it out with Minshew. They got a new quarterback. He's still getting his chemistry with everybody, and they're running into a very angry Baltimore team about the loss last week with Kansas City. I think they
by that much missed it
by that much.
Yeah. Here might be an upset.
They're going to maul the Raiders, I'm afraid.
You know what? I'll call another upset. Here's a big one for you. I'm gonna have to change it in my pick'em league. I want to take the Bengals over the Chiefs for the upset.
See, I think that's a clear-cut Chiefs win.
I mean, it probably is. That's why they call it an upset.
Yeah, no, it would be. I just don't see it happening, so I'm not gonna call it.
Or at least I'll move it down. Well, let's just look. We got Bears.
Well, yeah, if you go with that, make that 2 points, because that's tough.
The Bears, Texans, I think the Texans have it. 49ers, Vikings, I think the Niners have it. The Giants, Commanders, I think the Commanders have it, but I don't think it's an upset either way, to be honest.
I don't either. But I think it's very obviously should be the Commanders.
Right. And the Cowboys, Saints? Cowboys, obviously.
Cowboys, not going against the Cowboys. Not going to say them Saints. And listen, the Saints beat up on Carolina last week. The Cowboys beat up on the #1 predicted defense. So let's.
So
I think
speaking of
I
them,
think
I don't know who's favored here. Maybe this is an upset. I don't know who's favored. Browns, Jags. I'm taking the Jags.
yeah, everyone should.
Everyone
Clearly,
should. So it's
Deshaun
probably not.
Watson is fucked in the head and the body, and he's done it. The guy's goose is cooked.
Yeah.
The verdict is in. You're fired. You're done. You're
You're fired.
cooked. Get the fuck out.
Take
Don't
your
let the door
money
hit
and
you on the
leave.
ass on the way out. Yeah. Take your
Lucky
$130
guy.
million and fucking get the fuck out. Or was it $230 million?
I think it
Something
was
huge.
$230
I think it was
million.
$230 million.
Oh,
Oh my God. Let's
wow. Crazy. So you got the
So,
Bucs
yeah.
Lions. You got the Bucs Lions. I mean, Lions.
Should be the Lions. Should be the Lions. That's what I'm saying.
And then
Like,
my upset Rams Cardinals. And then the other one is Steelers Broncos. And I don't know if either one of them is a real upset, but I think the Steelers, because just based on TJ Watt alone, I think is going to
totally
ruin
their defense versus a rookie quarterback is a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
So
and then Falcons Eagles. Falcons Eagles is going to be the Eagles.
Yeah. So exactly. So to me, it's all. I mean, there will be upsets, obviously, but looking at them on paper, I feel like the winners and losers are for week 2 are pretty cut and dry.
Yeah. Well, that's when that's when everything goes wrong. This is going to be the upside down. Yeah.
It wouldn't be the NFL if actually things worked out that way, but on paper, looking at the games, I think most of them are pretty easy. Win, and really not. There's not a lot of head scratchers. Whereas week 1, there were so many. I'm like, yeah.
Well, because there was how many rookie quarterbacks? How many new faces? Or old faces in new places. We didn't know any. We hadn't seen anything. A lot of these guys. I mean, Deshaun Watson didn't throw a pass.
And in our pick'em league, like the 2 guys at the top, they each only missed 2 of them. And we're like, well, that's some good guessing then. They had a really great week of guessing. I'm glad they got that in there because I don't think anybody. I think anybody was prone to not knowing which way the cookie crumbled on a lot of those games last week.
Yeah. Agreed.
A lot of them were taught. So now that we've seen it, now that we know what we're working with, I think it's much easier to predict, or at least to pick the games for week 2.
Especially since now there are some injuries, there are missing pieces, which helps swing the pendulum. So Absolutely. I think there's a little more. It's a little more obvious.
The Jordan Love one is huge. The Jordan Love one is just huge.
I feel so bad for them, but at the same time, fuck Green Bay.
Yeah, truly.
They always took us out. So.
After they butt fucked us on national TV.
Over and over again. I mean, just all the time. I mean, it's the worst. Whether it's Rodgers or Love.
The worst.
That Jordan Love owes the Cowboys money. I mean, do you know how much money that kid made because he beat us? He made $200 and something million based on that game.
And Aaron Jones, the guy who actually beat us, got shipped off to Minnesota.
Who had a good game. He had a good game.
Yeah,
I was surprised because he's 29, right? He had a pretty good game. I don't know how he'll do. He might be a boomer bust too. Aaron Jones.
Yeah. I mean, they beat the crap out of the Giants last week.
Yeah, but they're playing 49ers this week, so I guess he'll be a bust.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, you play him because he's probably your RB2, but yeah, don't expect much because he's going to be running up against the Niners. They're going to buzz off. They're going to have to throw the ball. Yeah,
man. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for another week.
All right, but great episode. I think we covered a lot of good stuff. Let's see how this works out. Don't forget it, everybody. Bucky Irving. You know what? When he takes the field, I'm going to lose my mind.
Fire him up.
I'm taking a very early flight again, so I can be on my couch watching my game.
Let's go.
All right, brother. This is it. Fantasy football. Harsh reality.